So, and I see a show of hands. How many people have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Good, thank you. Who has not yet read the book? I'm always afraid that someday there'll be no buyers out there. Well, it's been 21 years. It's still top 10 on Amazon. Top 10, like it's number 1 in Japan today. It's even number 6 in France, the Communist Republic of France. The only place that doesn't sell well is the Communist Republic of California. So it's doing well. But anyway, the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I'll quickly draw this schematic here. The reason Rich Dad, Poor Dad is so successful, it's basically a book on accounting. That's all it is. And how many people in this book have studied accounting? Good. How many people have never studied accounting? You're lucky. It is the single most boring subject on planet Earth, you know what I mean? And so that's why Tom helps me. But this is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was born in Hawaii. I'm 4th generation Japanese American, which means I don't speak Japanese. So a lot of people come and practice on me. I say, I don't do that stuff, you know. I barely speak English. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad is simply a book on accounting. And Tom's been one of the best guides on it because this is how it started. So when I was 9 years old, my rich dad very simply said to me, you know, he says, because I was flunking out of school. My poor dad was the head of education for the state of Hawaii. And my rich dad was my best friend's father who never finished school. And the reason he never finished school was because his father died when he was 13. And at 13, Rich Dad had to take over the family business. So this was the difference. Rich Dad went to school in real school. He didn't have fake teachers. See, a fake teacher is somebody who doesn't do what they teach. Rich Dad was taught by his accountants, his bookkeepers, his attorneys, his banker, his brokers. So he had every day they were in the business of business. And one of the reasons I dropped out of my MBA program was because the teachers were fake. You know, when I was I was a Marine pilot. I was still just coming back from Vietnam in 1973, and I enrolled in the MBA program in Honolulu. I was stationed at Kaneohe Marine Corps Air Station. And I sat in the MBA class, and this teacher comes out. The guy was younger than me, because I was already 27, and he didn't know what he was talking about. And I asked him a real quick question. I said, "Are you an accountant?" He says, "Yes, I have a master's in accountancy." And being a Marine, how many people remember the Vietnam era? I was not a popular guy sitting in an MBA class among all these communist students. And, you know, they're spitting at me. So I'm sitting there, and I said, and so these kids are like 20 years old, whatever they are. And I've just come back. I've had friends die and all this stuff. I got to put up with their BS, you know. So I'm sitting in this class, and I asked the instructor, I said, "Tell me, are you," I just repeat the question. I'm a Marine lieutenant. I just don't like BS, you know. And I said, "Are you an accountant?" He says, "Yes, I have a master's in accounting." I said, "That's not the question. Are you an accountant?" He says, "I have a master's in accountants." I said, "Have you ever been an accountant?" He says, "No. I resigned from the MBA program." He had no idea what he was talking about. And that's one of the problems of young people today. They're going to school with teachers who don't know what they're talking about. I remember I went to military school, the academy in New York, and I asked my calculus teacher, I said, "When will I ever use this calculus?" He says, "I don't know." "Why do you teach it?" He says, "I get paid." And today, my brain is still messed up taking 3 years of calculus. I had no idea what I was studying, okay? So anyway, Tom has really helped me with these things like this. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad is about income, expense, assets, and liabilities. That's all it's about. And one more thing, the most important word for those of you who are in real business is a statement of cash flow. That's all it is. So very simply, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the statement of cash flow says, assets, put money in your pocket. Liabilities, take money from your pocket. That's all the book's about. And so the reason people are in trouble financially is they buy houses they think are assets. But it's really taking money from your pocket, whereas I buy a piece of rental property and put money in my pocket. That's the difference. So that's all Rich Dad, Poor Dad was about. Any comments on this, Tom?
No, that's why I love Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? So how many world-famous books are there about accounting? I think one. So what most people don't recognize either is that, you know, liability is okay if it's producing an asset because it's all about the cash flow.
Yeah, but you don't know if it's an asset or liability until you apply the verb, which is cash flow. So I can have a rental property and it's producing income one day, but it goes vacant, and now it shifts into a liability the next day. And that's what happened to many people in 2008. They got hammered because their tenants moved out or lost their jobs or whatever it is. So basically all Rich Dad was produced 1997, 21 years ago. And it's very simply about what they should teach kids about money. That's all it's about. So this here is a second book, and it was called The Cash Flow Quadrant. And this is the cash flow quadrant. So again, I'm 9 or 10 years old. My rich dad's teaching me assets versus liabilities, and then he starts teaching me about the 4 people in the world of business. And how many people read the cash flow quadrant? Good, thank you. For those who haven't, very simply, E stands for employee. My poor dad always said, go to school to get a job. That's why they're employees. My mom wanted me to be a specialist, like a doctor or attorney or a lawyer or a pizza shop owner. I was a C student. I'll never become a doctor. But this is where Tom comes in, is because, as Tom will tell you, employees pay 40%. All these guys who are becoming entrepreneurs today, they leave their jobs, or the colleges are teaching kids to be entrepreneurs. They move into a higher tax bracket without financial education. And business owner, which is 500 employees or more, these guys pay about 20%. And this is worldwide, right, Tom?
Worldwide.
And these guys pay 0%. So when I was 9 or 10 years old, my rich dad said, which one would you like to be? So this is Shark Tank. These guys are passive investors. They buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, save money. These are inside investors. They're the inside the deal. Very different. So Tom's going to talk quickly right now about the Trump tax cut and how that affected this year.
Yeah, so fundamentally, when you look at these different rates, it's just a matter of what the government is rewarding, right? Because the tax law is just a series of incentives. It's an incentives for things like creating employment. So these guys create a lot of employment, they get a lot of tax incentives to do that. Or creating housing or hotels or whatever type of investing, agriculture. So these guys get a lot of tax.
Or oil and gas or food and things like that, which is right here. See, these guys here have really good tax advantages, right?
Right, because this is what the government wants you to do. They'd like you to put your money here. If you put your money here or here, they're going, that's fine, we're happy to take your money. The reason these guys are so high is because they're paying not only the employee share of the taxes, but they're also paying the employer's share of the taxes. So that's why you end up in such a big tax bracket down self-employed. And this, again, worldwide, not just the U.S.
Yeah, the numbers may vary a little bit, but generally that's the way, because the government's got to have these guys as partners, right?
Well, yeah, because these guys are doing what the government needs somebody in the private market to do, that the government doesn't want to do themselves. So they're encouraging people to do this. Now, what happened in the Trump tax bill last year is fascinating, because these guys, the money had to come from somewhere, right? So these guys ended up losing a lot of their tax benefits. These guys lost a lot of tax benefits, and permanently, by the way, not temporarily. These guys got to see their corporate tax rate go from 35% to 21%.
Amen, George.
40% tax break immediately. So they had a huge tax break. These guys are the only people in the U.S. who did better than these guys. They saw, for example, a real estate deduction on $1 million property going from $100,000 the first year to $300,000 the first year. In fact, I was talking to Mike Maselli, and I said, how does it feel to actually have real estate be a better first-year deduction than oil and gas now? That's what happened in the 2017.
So again, the rich get richer, and these guys should move to California. Well, I don't know. How many people are from California? Have you heard of Allied moving vans? Get out there quickly. But the point here, this is poor dad, and this is rich dad. So, and again, these guys are insiders. Why do I like real estate? Because I'm on the inside. I don't want to be on the outside. I don't have any stocks. I might have a few stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs, because I don't like being on the outside. Plus, I don't get the tax breaks. And by the way, if I could say something, I've had a pretty checkered career. My background, I went to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point, New York, and my specialty is oil and gas. I was a tanker driver, so I drove oil tankers for Standard Oil of California. That's why I invest with Mike Maselli and other oil companies. Because let's say I gave Mike Maselli $100,000, what's my tax break immediately?
Immediately $40,000 back in your pocket.
Try getting that from Exxon. So why would I touch ExxonMobil or Standard, my own old company? And so after I sailed for Standard Oil, that's why I like oil and gas. I'm a resource guy. And that's when I joined the Marine Corps because the Vietnam War was still on. So I went to Pensacola, Florida. We just got hit by that hurricane. And then went to Camp Pendleton and straight to Vietnam. And then I realized Vietnam was not about saving communists or killing communists. It was about oil. Because America did not want China to get Vietnam's oil. That's why we're there. Nothing to do about communism. But anyway, and then as part of my career to understand this, I've taken 3 companies public. They're all resource companies. I took an oil company public through the TSX, Toronto Stock Exchange. I took an Argentine silver mine public through the TSX, and I took a Chinese gold company public through the TSX. So when I walk these halls here, I get the same vibes, you know. I love it because when I'm walking the halls here at the New Orleans Investment Conference, I'm with real entrepreneurs. You know, first thing I ask them is, are you going public or when are you going public? Because anybody knows anything, the money is made before it goes public. Why would I'm not saying anything wrong about guys who already are public. A lot of TSX companies here, because Vancouver, the Wild West, Vancouver, where all the banditos hung out, and TSX, Toronto, that's where the resource guys are. So I spent about 10 years up there doing these resource deals just so I could understand the public markets. And I feel for these guys here. I have a simpatico with them. And that's why I love the New Orleans Investment Conferences, because this is where the real entrepreneurs are. But as you guys know, the money is made before it goes public. And I've taken 3 of them public. I'll never do business. I do a lot of business in China as an author, but my company back in 1996, 97, we found the biggest gold play in China. It was in Dalian province. Took it public on the TSX, and we did our drilling. We came up with about 1 billion ounces of gold, $1 billion worth of gold. I don't know how many million ounces. But what Trump is fighting for right now, as you guys know, what's mine is theirs. And my gold mine got confiscated. It's called country risk. But they don't teach you that in business school. You know what I mean? So anyway, I love the New Orleans Investment Conference, but it's where we hang out. So basically, this is my background. I do practice what I preach. I do this. Tom, do I have assets?
A lot.
And the reason I have assets is my rich dad taught me just playing Monopoly. 4 greenhouses, 1031 tax-deferred exchange, red hotels. So I own red hotels. That's how I get up to 500 employees. Golf courses, oil wells, and gold. Lots of gold. Any comments on this stuff here, Tom?
Well, I can say, being Robert's personal accountant, he's told me I can say this, is that what he's done is pretty amazing, because if you think about it, so the more income you make over here, the more taxes you pay, right? But the more assets you buy over here, the fewer taxes you pay. So the more real estate, Robert makes all sorts of money, you know, selling books and in his business and so forth. What he has to do is push that money into assets, else he's going to pay a ton of taxes. It's really that simple.
Yeah, so that's what I go into right now. It's called the infinite return. So in 1973, when I came back from Vietnam, my poor dad wanted me to go here and get my master's, get my PhD like he did, and my rich dad said, come here. So I went here, as you can tell, because I didn't like school personally. I liked military school. I loved flight school. I just hated academics and school teachers, because I don't like fake teachers. And Tom and I have taught all over the world, haven't we?
We have.
And the worst teachers are?
Accounting professors. It's true.
No, they would have another ass from a hole in the ground. You know what I mean? No, but they don't understand cash flow, right?
That's the challenge. They don't.
Because they go operate on the definition of the word versus the technical or the useful benefit of the word. That's the big difference. That's why, as you know, Nancy Pelosi and Obama and many of the other our leaders, that's why the cash keeps flowing out. They don't know assets from liability. That's why we're going broke as a nation. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is an infinite return. And very simply is if you have a real financial education, you'll never need money and you'll never pay taxes. But they don't teach that in school. And by the way, I've been working with the real estate guys for 20 years now, and Tom and I will be on their summit at sea. And this year the theme is the infinite return. So if you can, there's only a few spaces left on the cruise, but many of my advisors will be with me with Tom and I on this cruise. And the whole theme is how you make money with nothing, because you don't need money to make money. It's one of the biggest lies. And when people say that money doesn't make you happy, well, working at a job you hate doesn't make you happy, and paying a lot of tax doesn't make me happy, and being on this side makes me very happy. And I'm glad there's people who like being on this side, but I didn't like it here. I wanted to be here. So this is called the infinite return, and Tom will guide. He is really my adult supervision up here, okay? So Tom is the A student, and I was the not even C. I flunked English twice, and I'm now known as the best-selling author. On the side of teachers, the teachers that flunked me, one of them my father fired. He just, you're out of here. And so it was my sophomore year of high school, I was 15. So this guy, Dennis Gibson, flunks, I think, 80% of the class. So my father called him up and said, hey, Dennis, you're out of here. So when my father fired the teacher that flunked me, I suddenly became big man on campus. But the good news is I did get to one of the best schools, the United States Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point, New York. I got 2 nominations, one to Naval Academy at Annapolis, one to Kings Point. I took Kings Point because Kings Point is the highest paid graduates in the world. Back in 1965, we're making about $120K a year, and a lot of it tax-free, which is not much money today, but $120,000 in 1965 was a lot of money for a 21-year-old kid. And I gave it all up to go fly for the Marine Corps, which proved not very smart. But anyway, but thank God, because I knew I was going to be rich. I just didn't, I just wanted to have some fun and fly for a while. But this is the mission of the Rich Dad Company, formed in 1997, was to elevate the financial well-being of humanity. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we're in trouble. We're in very, very big trouble. And the trouble is our kids are leaving school stupid and poor. There's now new evidence coming out more and more. If a kid is born to a poor family, they will die poor. There is no chance for them. That's the problem, because family and religion and education has more effect on them than anything else. So in 1997, we formed this company. Today, we're going to talk to you about infinite returns. Infinity, and it's called an infinite ROI. And when we talk about ROI, it equals return on information. Information we don't get in school, and information our political leaders should actually educate themselves with. Trump knows this stuff, but unfortunately Pelosi, Obama, and Clintons, they only know one thing: steal money. That's the problem with them. I'm not Republican or Democrat, I just don't like people who steal. Trump lies, but he doesn't steal that much, okay? I know some people love him and some people hate him, and I don't really care. But, we do need somebody who knows money at least. So this is Reuters. You can see I'm not the best student. I just tore this out of the newspaper. October 13, 2008. Kushner likely paid little taxes for years. I mean, they make it sound like a bunch of crooks for not paying taxes. And it says Kushner's tax bill reflected the use of a tax benefit known as depreciation. Tom, is depreciation criminal?
Depreciation is very intentional, and the U.S. has better depreciation rules than any country on earth right now. The fact is that you buy a piece of real estate that's rented out or used in your business, you're probably going to get to deduct about 30% the year you buy it. So it's a huge incentive right now, and way bigger than most countries.
I want you to know we're not saying buy real estate, because right now I'm a net seller. I've never sold real estate, but I'll explain why I'm selling for the first time. But it's not a time to buy because of taxes. Is that correct?
Well, the tax benefits are enormous right now.
But you don't buy because of tax, okay?
Right.
It says Kushner's wife, Ivanka Trump, received at least $82 million outside income in 2017. How much tax did they pay on $82 million, Tom?
My guess is 0.
And that's what we're going to teach. That's called an infinite return. And so it talks about Kushner being a real estate guy. Anyway, advocates of financial education, Trump and I, 2006, we wrote Why We Want You to Be Rich. And then Midas Touch in 2011. I know some people love him, some people hate him. I think he's a great guy. I learned a lot working with him for 8 years. And my wife, who I know people think women hate him, my wife loves him. She just thinks he's a great guy. He is a womanizer, but he didn't mess with my wife, thank God. I had to kill him. What was your impression of Trump when you met him?
Yeah, I met him a couple of times. I actually met him back in 2011. And he's brilliant. You know, he's a very smart guy. I think he says really stupid stuff, but he's very extraordinarily confident. Extraordinarily confident
really
in what he believes.
So this is how I got to our